Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending today's Memorial Day ceremony. Today, with Americans everywhere, we honor our fallen warriors who lost their lives while serving our nation. I now ask all military members to please stand and come to attention as Senior Airman Jean Marie comes forward to sing our national anthem, after which Chaplain McKee will deliver the invocation.
Coach. Turn up. Right shoulder. Go. Turn up. Go. Set, halt!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rankle, the bombs bursting in our gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Halt. Coach. Coach turn. Halt.
Please join me in your faith as I pray according to mine. Lord Father God, I thank you so much for today. Lord, I come before you with gratefulness. Gratefulness for a nation that desires the betterment of their people. Lord, gratefulness for people who are willing to serve. And today, Lord, I'm mostly grateful for those who are willing to give the biggest of sacrifices, their lives. Father, I lift up their families, those who are left behind. I lift them up and I pray, Lord, that you will help us to never forget the sacrifice that was made by the individual, by the service member, and by their family. Help us to honor them today and each day. This I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Senior Airman Jean Marie and Chaplain McKee. It was 3 years after the Civil War ended on May 5th, 1868, that the head of the Grand Army of the Republic, an organization of Union veterans, established Decoration Day as the time for the nation to decorate the graves of the war dead with flowers. The first large-scale events took place at Arlington National Cemetery that same year and centered around the mourning-draped veranda of the Arlington Mansion, where General and Mrs. Ulysses S. Grant presided over the ceremonies. After speeches, members of the Grand Army of the Republic and children orphaned by the Civil War made their way through the cemetery, strewing flowers on both Union and Confederate graves, reciting prayers and singing hymns. In subsequent years, many towns throughout the nation held local observances to remember their war dead. But it wasn't until after World War I that the day was expanded to honor those who died in all American wars. In 1971, Memorial Day was declared a national holiday by an act of Congress. The day commemorates those who died in the defense of our national ideals: freedom, justice, and equal rights for all. These ideals have been challenged many times, and thousands of Americans have given their lives in many parts of the world to secure those ideals and to ensure that we, the living, continue to promote the cause of peace and the ideals for which they so valiantly gave of themselves. Today, the United States stands as a beacon of liberty and democratic strength before the community of nations. We are resolved to stand firm against those who would destroy the freedoms we cherish. We are determined to achieve an enduring peace, a peace with liberty and with honor. This determination, this resolve, is the highest tribute we can pay to the many who have fallen in their service to our nation. With Memorial Day's origins in the Civil War, it is appropriate to recall President Lincoln's brief but profound words from his famous Gettysburg Address, given on the Gettysburg battlefield in November 1863, just 4 months after the end of the war, when he dedicated the Soldiers' National Cemetery. I ask Chaplain Kelsey to please come forward to read President Lincoln's address.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you, Chaplain Kelsey. Today, as we pay tribute to the fallen, we ask you to think about the men and women who have come before you, carrying the same flag that flies over our installation. For more than 200 years, the American flag has been the symbol of our nation's unity, as well as a source of pride and inspiration for millions of citizens. Born on June 14th, 1777, the Second Continental Congress determined that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red and 6 white, and that the Union be 13 stars, white, in a blue field, representing a new constellation. between 1777 and 1960, the shape and design of the flag evolved into the flag presented before you today. The 13 horizontal stripes represent the 13 original colonies, while the stars represent the 50 states of the Union. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. Red symbolizes hardiness and valor. White signifies purity and innocence, and blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. Traditionally a symbol of liberty, the American flag has carried the message of freedom and inspired Americans both at home and abroad. In 1814, Francis Scott Key was so moved at seeing the stars and stripes waving after the British shelling of Baltimore's Fort McHenry that he wrote the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. In 1892, the flag inspired Francis Bellamy to write the Pledge of Allegiance, our most famous flag salute and patriotic oath. In July 1969, the American flag was flown in space when Neil Armstrong planted it on the surface of the moon. Today, our flag flies on constellations of U.S. satellites that circle our globe, and on the tail flash of our aircraft in harm's way in every corner of the world. Indeed, it flies in the heart of every American that serves our great nation. The sun never sets on our armed forces, nor on the flag we so proudly cherish. Since 1776, no generation of Americans has been spared the responsibility of defending freedom. Today's airmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, members of the Coast Guard and Space Force remain committed to preserving for generations to come the freedom that others have won. By displaying the flag and giving it a distinctive fold, we show respect to the flag and express our gratitude to those individuals who fought and continue to fight for our freedom at home and abroad. Since the dawn of the 20th century, we have proudly flown the flag in every major conflict on lands and skies around the world. It is our responsibility to continue to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and freedoms we as Americans enjoy today. The United States flag represents who we are. It stands for the freedom we all share and the pride and patriotism we feel in our country. We cherish its legacy as a beacon of hope to one and all. Long may it wave. Now, let us honor the fallen. Chaplain McKee, if you would please come forward and deliver the benediction.
Please join me in prayer. Lord God, thank you for today. Thank you for allowing us to come together and to honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our forgiveness. Lord, I pray that we will leave here today not only remembering those who have given so much, but challenged to honor them every day in our lives and in our service. I ask these things in your name. Amen.
Flexibility truly is the key to air power. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending today's ceremony despite sandstorms and rain. Thank you for being with us.